Welcome to the Purple Patch Sales Edge podcast with me, Danielle de Cunha-Howarth.
And me, Lucy Lee.
Today, in this episode, we are talking all about the Myers-Briggs Type Indicators. I'm going to give you some examples of how we've used it in different organizations and teams. I'm going to share with you, how it helps you understand a bit more about yourself and the people around you and how you can operate in this crazy world a little bit easier. So, Lucy Lee, today we are diving, this is going to be good. We're diving into the fascinating world of personality assessments, but specifically we're going to be talking about the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator tool. And some of you may or may not know, but I'm a certified Myers-Briggs Type Indicator practitioner, and I have been since 2018. And I have used this tool in countless numbers of workshops, team offsites, coaching sessions, used it on you.
Yeah.
It's one of my go-to methods for just really unlocking teams and communication, but also things that I think people probably wouldn't expect, like even managing stress and all that kind of stuff. So, so why did I say that we should do this topic? I wanted to do this topic specifically because I think this kind of post-pandemic workplace is really interesting at the moment. And I think companies are really trying to rebuild these connections, improve communication, and create some more cohesive teams. And personality assessments like Myers-Briggs is a really, really, really powerful way of being able to do that. Had you heard of Myers-Briggs before I introduced you to it or not?
No, you told me you sent it to all of us and you told us that we had to spend, I think it was like 20 minutes or half an hour doing like the admin of the test before you even sit in a room with us. And we all just went, oh God, okay, what are we doing? What is this going to be? But no, I hadn't heard of it. Really, really interesting. Are we going to tell them what we are?
Yeah, we will. We'll save that till the end, though.
Right.
Okay. We'll save it till the end.
To last.
Yeah, so I did it. Yeah, you're right. I did it with you and the team. So I think there was maybe eight of us by that point. Yeah. Maybe six or eight of us by that point. But for those of you that might have heard of it but don't really know or understand what it is, I'll just give you a quick kind of rundown of its kind of origin. So there was a Swiss psychiatrist, a guy called Carl Jung. And he basically developed a theory of these personality-like differences between people. And through his research, he found that they are not random. Instead, they form patterns and they form these kind of types. And I really love this quote from him. He said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to understanding of ourselves, which I really, really like.
I love that. Yeah.
So he was born in 1875, died in 1961. Wow. And then where the Myers-Briggs piece comes in. So then there was a lady called Catherine Briggs, and she was an American psychologist, and she read all of Jung's kind of early research, and he wrote a book all about psychological types. She found this book, and then she literally spent the next 20 years studying it, developing it, and applying his theories. Then her daughter got involved. So the Briggs piece, Isabel Briggs was her daughter. Now, interestingly, she's the one who actually developed the questions. And those questions, I know, mad, those questions have been the same questions since the 1940s. They have not changed. So that questionnaire that I asked you to do and the rest of the team to do has not changed since the 1940s. So,
do you think it's outdated?
Definitely not. No, definitely not. So that's a little bit of background about kind of how it started. And how it works is basically we kind of carry out these two mental kinds of processes. We take in information and then we make decisions about that information. And we all have these preferred ways of how we use these mental processes. And Jung, he basically observed that we live in kind of two worlds. We have the outer world of things and people and events, and then we have this inner world of our own thoughts and feelings and reflections. And again, each of us has a preference for how the outer world and the inner world kind of affect us and what we do with that information. He also believed that these preferences are innate, so they are inborn predispositions, right? They're innate to us. But he also recognized that they're shaped by environmental influences. So that kind of nature versus nurture kind of thing. So if I think about it from that perspective, what examples, Lucy, of nurture, what nurture influences can affect personality? What do you think they are?
Nurture influences how you like tolerate people, how you talk to people. Is that what you mean? Or like personality traits, like nature of a nurture?
Well, if you think about nurture and you think about the moment you were born and as you kind of grow up, those influences. So it would be like the country you were born into, the religion you were born into, the education system that you were born into. That's, the types of parents that you had and how they parented you. Those nurture can absolutely influence your personality and how you operate in the world. But Jung kind of found that you have these, we call them like the 4 dichotomies of Myers-Briggs, but they're innate, right? They will never change. You can fluctuate, but they'll never change. So, and again, just to explain the dichotomies, I don't want to go too much because people are going to be like, what is she on about?
This is cool. I'm learning. I'm like, this is great. I'll listen to this podcast.
So the 4 dichotomies of Myers-Briggs are you have number 1, which is, are you inwardly or outwardly focused with your energy? So this one a lot of people will know about. We talk a lot about this. Correct. Yeah. Extrovert, introvert, right? But it's not about, are you loud or are you quiet, right? Total like misconception around what introversion and extroversion mean. It's actually where you get your energy from, right? So, do you go inward to kind of regenerate, which is quiet space, read books, or do you go outward? Like if you're an extrovert, you get your energy from doing, seeing, talking, etc. So it's more associated to energy. The second ones is how we prefer to take in information. Do we kind of like facts and figures and really practical things, or do we focus on more possibilities and big picture and ideas and concepts? Which way are we kind of drawn in the way that we kind of take in that information? How do we prefer to make decisions? Do we use thinking? So are we more logical? Are we more value, justice, fairness? Or are we more like personal values and actions and how it affects others and, that kind of stuff? And then the 4th dichotomy is how you prefer to live in your outer world. So do you respect rules and deadlines and value detail, or do you like to just completely leave your options open and be really spontaneous and forget the deadlines and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And even as I'm talking about these different dichotomies, I'm sure you're already thinking in your head, oh, I know someone that's like that, or I know somebody that's like that. But so these pairs, these 4 pairs, you are innately kind of one of each pair.
Yes.
It's not to say that it's not to say that you can't do both, right? I am an extrovert, but I can absolutely do introverted.
Totally.
It's just that you have a preference for one. You were born with an innate preference for one. So so that's the dichotomies, whether you sit on either side, and then ultimately that will make your personality type. And essentially through Myers-Briggs, there are 16 different personality types that you can be. So that's just a little bit of background into what it is.
I love it. When we did this, I think one of my, I think we had, honestly, touch wood, probably you mentioned it as like a sweet spot, and I'll always mention it as like the sweet spot of like my career was that team. Like that team in that environment was just pure. And but the interesting thing was we were so different, and very different. And sometimes I'd be like, but I don't understand why that person's doing it like this. And then I remember like you put us all in that room and I was like, that's why they think like that. And then it was like, how do you use those to their advantage? And then I remember you used to buddy us up. You used to put me with Jordan to be more creative. Because Jordan's brain would just span everywhere, and you'd end up with like a million things on a page. Whereas if you'd asked me to do that, you'd end up with one slide with the 4 bits of information you'd asked for. And it was really interesting. And I actually had a lot more, not that I didn't respect my team, because I did, but like a lot more understanding of how they worked after going through that. Like it was so interesting.
Correct. Yeah. And that's the thing, I said it when I opened, like, why do we even do these things? It's because we companies, teams, individuals, they invest in these types of tools because we need to bridge the gap of understanding of ourselves and how we operate and how we work with others. Because you know what? We're not just born and then we don't just live this singular life where we don't interact with people. We're interacting with people all the time, every day. And the more that you can understand others, the more you can understand yourself, the better you operate in that world.
100%.
So it's good, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. And again, the reason I put you with other people who have almost like an opposite way of looking at the world or making decisions or processing information, you will always innately be your way, always.
Yeah.
To flex, to be able to understand others, to be able to look at, that's interesting the way you looked at that, just expands your brain and your horizons as well. So it's good.
I think if you hadn't gone through that exercise, and this is if businesses or people are listening who have authority or any form of ideas to get budget for you to come and run this in their world, like from someone who went through that, if you just put me with these people, which we did before we did Myers-Briggs, and we still got on incredibly well, but there definitely wasn't the cohesion. Like when we went through that and then had projects that followed on from that, it just worked better. Whether we were obviously in a project-based environment really, and that just worked incredibly well, working across different time zones. And I think it was really, really valuable. Don't even know if you can show ROI on that, but it was.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And the thing is, there are many different personality tools. I'm sure people listening might have done DISC, or they might have done Clifton Strength Finders or the Big Five. And there's so many different ones out there and they're all brilliant. I think what drew me to Myers-Briggs was its history, for sure. Like this theory is like from the heads. And as I mentioned, the questions.
That's old.
It is old and it's still going. So I think that depth, that history, the more of a focus on like personal growth, I think for me, I just gravitated towards better. And I'd also used it in myself. Like I had some coaching years ago and this assessment was done on me, and it really shifted the way I thought about myself, more of an understanding of why things grated on me, like why, it was just really, really interesting. And so that's why I chose this tool. But of course, there are many others. We just touched on it then, but why invest in this? Why do this? They exist for gaps in understanding, as you just talked about, understanding yourself, how you manage yourself in these situations. I think it challenges misconceptions. I think it any mismatched expectations of people and workplace stress. I think all those things. And then it just gives you this common language, right? Because after we did the offsite, I heard you all talking to each other going, oh, well, that's because you're more of a feeler. And I really value that. And I'm like, wow, you had this new language to describe how you were each approaching things in a different way. And I think it's ace. Like it's great for you as an individual. It offers clarity on your strengths. It shows you your blind spots, which for me was amazing, and your stress triggers.
Yes.
So I think in Myers-Briggs, we call it when you're in the grip, and each personality type, when they're under high stress, will react in a very, very different way. And I could absolutely, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that's me, stressed for sure. So even understanding like what your stress triggers are, how stress shows up for you is really, really interesting. Really interesting. But just interestingly, when you said like, if anybody can do this internally, I think right now there's like this huge shift. And I read an article the other day, and it was about how companies are now actually bringing in interpersonal skills training into organizations. Because, and it makes sense. I mean, to me, it doesn't, because you and I have lived and grown up in an office environment. So we learned how to behave in that environment. But right now we've got a lot of people who have either forgotten how to behave in that environment or actually haven't grown up in that environment. And so navigating that hybrid work environment is super interesting.
That's really interesting. I also think that, because the ones that, and it's actually like a long time ago now, really, like COVID was what, how many years ago? Was it 4 or 5?
5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Yeah, since the beginning. Yeah.
So that is literally, if you were 18, you got come out of uni at 22, you're a 27-year-old in the workplace now, and it could be your first job in an office, and you're nearly, that's terrifying. And we wonder why they all go in rooms and don't want to interact together on a floor. It's like, well, of course they don't. They've just been on the phones in the bedroom.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Yeah.
But also, I'll just quote from this article that I read. And it was like, some workers are finding that their colleagues have lost the etiquette and decorum of being in office. I'm like, wow, but doesn't that make sense? Because if you've been sat in your shorts, right, every day, and like, I think they said that some people become a bit more boisterous, like, and possibly not behaving how they should do.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think that cost right now could be huge for companies. So, yeah, it's just something to kind of bear in mind as well.
Very
interesting. I thought I might just take the opportunity just to debunk. There's some quite common misconceptions about Myers-Briggs as well. So I thought I might debunk some of those. So a lot of people say, I don't want to be put in a box.
That's like, Lindsay, don't box me.
A common myth is that like Myers-Briggs labels people and then you box them into these fixed categories. But actually, when you go through these workshops, you see that this is really not about that. It's about embracing. And there's no personality type that is better than the other. It's all like understanding your cognitive functions and how that plays out in the world. So yeah, we're definitely not people, putting people in a box. Another one is that people say, oh, well, your type can change over time. You will adapt and grow, but your type will always remain the same. Like, it is innate.
Really?
Yeah. And they did research as well where they came back to people after kind of months and years, and between 75 and 90% were exactly the same. And they actually found that some of the discrepancy was probably just in people like second guessing themselves on the questions. So what else do people say? It determines what career suits you. It doesn't. There are actually some of the reports that you can do and download will show you careers where you would be matched to, but it doesn't mean that you can't thrive in any career. So yeah, and again, all personality types should be treated equally. And I kept saying that to you. And you should never jump to conclusions about people either unless they've actually been through it, actually done the test, and actually got the results. So yeah, I thought I might debunk that a little bit. No, we're going to tell them at the end. Why do you? Well, we can. Do you want to tell them what you are?
Yeah, well, because I want to go through it because I had a screenshot of it and everything.
I've got your report in front of me.
Of course, yeah.
I've got it over here. I've actually got it right here, Lucy. I've got it in front of me.
It's what I made earlier.
Yeah, no, I think, well, I just thought before we go into ours, I thought I might just share like some of the stories and I suppose practical application of where I've used this, because I think people find it really interesting. And these are just a few that stand out. But there was one that I did with a brand new manager. So this girl had just been promoted into managing a team, and we did a full day workshop all around Myers-Briggs, and it was incredible for her, for the team, for everybody. I think first of all, because it's a workshop and it's a workshop environment, I make it really fun, right? Like, I like to think that I make it really fun. So we have fun, and the bonding was just great. The understanding of each other and the types actually made them shift some of their ways of working. So if I give you an example, I think there was 6 of them were extroverts and 2 of them were introverts, right? And once they understood those differences, they were like, right, okay, so in our team meeting, the manager is now going to send ahead of time the agenda, right? Because as an introvert, I need time to sit with the information and process so that I can contribute.
Wow.
So we're like, okay, yeah, no problem. I'll send the agenda ahead of time. And then the other one was not making immediate decisions always in the meeting, like actually waiting 24 hours so that the introverts had time to process the information and maybe send their thoughts in an email in written form, because often introverts can prefer communicating in writing rather than verbalizing. So
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it's so good. They changed some of their ways of working, which was really great. But for the manager, being a brand new manager, was amazing. And I did a couple of sessions with her afterwards, because obviously she now had this blueprint of the different personality types of her team. So how you provide feedback to some personality types over others is completely different, and it will be received completely different. So she could shift and change to accommodate that in these people as well. So I think that was a really great example for me. So new managers, it's a great way to kick off, have some fun, get to know and understand each other, but then, use it to your advantage so that you can really manage these people the way they want to be managed, I think is the key to that. Better self-management, of course. So as you know, I have a coaching practice. I had a coaching client who constantly clashed with their manager, and it was really starting to break down their relationship, but also had a lot of stress, like, I want to leave, I want to change departments, I want to look for another position. But actually everything else she loved. It was literally just like, I keep butting heads with my manager and I don't know why. And as we kind of dug into it now, obviously I couldn't go to the manager and say, hey, can you just take this test for me so I can we can figure out what you are. But by doing a bit of probing, we kind of came to the conclusion that the manager might be a high sensing type, and she was strongly, intuitive. And so I said, just shift the way that you present your information, focus, more on the details, less on the big picture, and see how that works for you. And it absolutely transformed their relationship. Wow. Brilliant. So there's just another example. And then I think conflict and self-regulation, and again, not just in the work environment, knowing how to explore your own type, how to approach tough decisions, and just having that heightened awareness of who you are. What are your blind spots? When you are stressed, you can behave like this. How do you reduce some of that friction? I've seen that time and time again. So it was really good. So they're just some examples that stood out for me from the many, many different times I've used this.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And can go and use them tomorrow when they're in work. If you went through this course, that's so interesting. And why did you initially do it?
Initially did it because I'd had such a good experience with it personally, and I knew that I wanted to develop my coaching practice and use it as a tool, as well as I wanted to do a lot more workshops and stuff like this, because I could just see the benefit of it within organizations. So that's why I did it, and cool. I love it. I really, really like it.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So do you want to share with everybody what your type is?
Yeah, I do. We should really have a poll. Okay, so hang on, I got the thing up. So from what I remember, mine was, I remember I sent it to Dex Thomas, was ESTJ. Is that what you've got?
Well, no, we changed yours. Do you remember?
Oh, did we? Oh, yeah, we did. So what was I?
So often what can happen is, and this is why we do the workshop, right? So you do the questions and then it pumps out your report. And then we run the workshop with you basically running through, and I put you in groups as to which element you are of the dichotomies. Now with you, sometimes what can happen is there might be a question where you've been unsure of and you've hit another question. And then it basically, you go, when we're doing the workshop and we're doing the exercises, you go, I'm not sure that this is me. And then it's great, because what we do is I'll then give some different scenarios and we'll probe and we'll test and we'll go, yeah, you're right. Actually, this is you in this particular dichotomy.
Oh my God. Can I tell the story of one of the questions?
Go on.
So one of the questions, we were standing in this on this offsite, and it's like, your mate's just turned up dressed like Bridget Jones when she turns up to that party. And I just thought my brain was the same as everyone else's. And it was like, what would you say to your best friend? I think that's what it was. And I was like, mate, what if you turned up? You're like an idiot. Go home. And everyone was like, oh, that's very, very harsh. And then one of them was like, one of them in our team was like, I just tell them they look great, and off they go. My God. So good.
Yeah.
That was my favourite question.
Well, it's just fascinating, and it's such a simple question, and you have that image, and you just instantly go, well, this is how I would react.
Yeah.
But super interesting. So originally, your report came out as ESFP. That's right. And then we ended up shifting you to ESTJ, was that right?
Yeah, ESTJ. Yeah.
ESTJ, that's the one. So ESTJ, yeah. Cool. So so that's what we ended putting you as, and I am an ENTJ.
That was it. And you and Brett were exactly the same.
We were. And you could see it, right? As soon as you're like, yeah, wow. It's the way that you kind of approach things. And I think all of my kind of workbooks and everything are in storage at the moment. But I just wanted to see if I could find the very brief kind of synopsis. I think I've got one here, which is quite cool. Oh, it's coming up.
Got it?
Yeah, got it here. Yeah, so the little synopsis. So for me, an ENTJ, strategic, logical, efficient, outgoing, ambitious, independent, fiercely independent,
Shocking.
effective organizers of people and long-range planners. So that's me, absolutely. And then for you, an ESTJ, the short synopsis is efficient, outgoing, analytical, systematic, dependable, realistic, like to run the show and get things done in an orderly fashion. So that was you. But it's interesting though, because if you still, again, it's because we did really struggle with these two. I mean, that's pretty bang on. That's pretty bang on for you. Yeah.
The one bit that made me laugh in it was the blind spot. So what I'm looking at is this workbook. Do you remember that workbook you gave us?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So the workbook on mine came up with, and this is just this bang on, blind spots. Insensitivity. What's it called?
Insensitivity
to people issues. Remember to factor them in. And then the other one was intolerance for people who are less organised and efficient than you are. Try and value their flexibility and spontaneity.
And it's so right. Like you can be so black and white when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
You can be really black and white. I mean, like, why wouldn't you do it like that? That's just stupid, you know? And so it does. It's great. And actually what Lucy's showing there is I've got this great tool where you can basically flip your personality type and then flip the other person's personality type that you're talking to or having a meeting with right there and then. And it's great because you can just kind of have a bit more of an appreciation for them. You can flex the way that you speak. Yeah, it's really cool. Good. Really good. And it's fascinating in the workshop because what I like is those little traits, the really little traits that, you know, they use a lot of analogies and you look at someone and go like, you always use analogies. It's like, ding, so it is, it's good. And then of course, after that, there's, deeper reports that we can use, which do go a lot deeper into kind of your blind spots, how you operate, how you should interact with people, how to manage your own stress and things like that. So yeah, you can go really deep with it, but yeah, I love it. I've seen transformation from individual teams, organizational levels. And yeah, it's probably one of my most favorite things that I get to do in my jobs. Yeah. If anybody is interested, obviously drop me an email or a message. We can have a chat about it, but it's, we can do it in a day or we can do it over 2 or 3 days if you're doing it as part of an offsite. So yeah, it's really good. Really good. Yeah. Well, we should revisit it actually, Lucy. We should revisit it with each other and have a good look through our reports again. Yeah.
We should. I think I've got I'll bring him over when I come over to Lisbon.
Yeah, let's do it. We can have a deep dive.
Yeah.
Love
God,
it.
we know how to live.
Yeah. Oh, look at us. We're so much fun. So yeah, so that's Myers-Briggs. We thought it'd be quite interesting to introduce people to it and a bit more of an understanding of the tools. So if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, share your type if you've done Myers-Briggs before. And so that wraps up this episode.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks, Lucy. Have a great
day.
Bye.